afternoon, guys. We have another Gauntlet knife review today. This one has actually kind of sort of already been in the Gauntlet once. There was a mishap. They accidentally shipped the wrong knife, and so they have sent the correct one, the Quickhatch Trapper. Hang around, guys. Well, first off, folks, thank you for choosing to be here today. I do appreciate your time very much. Some of you may remember the Quickhatch Trapper that came through the Gauntlet, probably 2 or 3 channels. I don't remember exactly how many, but there was a mishap. They accidentally shipped a prototype model from many years ago. The model has changed several times. Anyway, we or they caught the mistake, and they shipped us out another one. So today is basically a re-entry of Quickhatch's Trapper into the Gauntlet. So that being said, first off, we're going to go over some specs real quick. I do have a couple of quick thoughts for you before I do that, though, and then we're going to get into something that I'll explain a little bit further in a minute. But my initial impressions on this knife, it is hefty. I like it. It's nice, thick steel. I believe it's 5/32. I'll go over the specs here in just a minute. But that means, you know, it's not overly heavy, but you can definitely tell it's there. It has a nice Coke bottle style handle, which really fills out your hand, provides a really good grip. I'm really liking it so far, and overall a really usable and friendly knife. It does have a crazy sharp 90-degree spine, which you'll see that in use here in a little while. It's got a really nice thick tip. It is a Scandi blade. It has a nice even grind. Anyway, to the thoughts I was speaking of, I don't know about you guys, but every once in a while when I get a blade, I hold it in my hand and I start to use it. I won't necessarily say it inspires me, but it kind of gives me a picture in my head what the knife was designed for. And I'll be honest, guys, living up to its name, this knife reminds me of basically 18th century trapping. I know this style isn't what they used back then, but in my head I can just picture some guy decked out in fur skins with a huge backpack on his back heading off into the woods for a season of trapping. So that's kind of where we're going to head today. But first, let's get the specs out of the way, and then I'll tell you what we have planned. Specs wise, let's go ahead and do the weight real quick, if I can get it on there. We're looking at 0.65 pounds. So like I said, it's not that heavy. It's a combination of the size of the handle, size of the blade, and the weight that makes it a substantial blade in your hand. Speaking of the sheath, it is a really nice handmade leather sheath. It's got good straight stitching, burnished sides, and it does have a dangler, which is removable. Right, overall, we're looking at about 10 1/8 inches long. On the blade, we're looking at just shy of 5 1/4. The height is about 1 3/4. The handle length is 4 3/4. Handle width at the widest point is 1 16". At the pommel is 1 3/16". So what do I have planned? Well, like I said, when I hold this knife in my hand and I start to use it, it makes me think of like an 18th century trapper. So what we're going to do is we're going to build an improvised smoker and smoke a shoulder roast. So that's going to involve a lot of firecraft. It's going to involve some crafting in and of itself, and it kind of sort of sticks with the theme with what I think this knife was designed for. So anyway, guys, I invite you to come along. Is going to be a bit non-standard. Usually I smoke them down tight, but with this one I'm just going to make sure that it will stay stable, will bear a load, but I want to leave the lashings just a little bit loose so I can spread it out and control height. I realize there are other ways to do that, but this is just my preference. The point where it bears the weight is at the knot in the middle, on the cordage, and not on the poles themselves, where you typically lash them together nice and tight. to where they're actually the point of contact for the weight bearing. The weight bearing's on the center line in between all three, and so it leaves the poles, which I'll show you a broader view here in a second, looser, so it's extremely easy to adjust the height, which will allow you to adjust how high your meat is above the fire. Alright guys, that's about as far back as I can pan, but you'll get the idea. I left the lashing loose so I can control the height by spreading out the legs. Alright guys, this is just a shoulder roast. I've been marinating for a few hours. This is stainless steel picture frame wire. Be sure to get stainless steel if you choose to do this. This is some handy stuff, guys. I will tell you what. I keep this in just about every kit that I have, just a little bit of it. It's reusable, and it really opens up a lot of options in what you're able to do. Now we want that fire to burn down a little bit more, and then we'll cover our teepee up so we can actually get the smoking process started. Now guys, this is going to be a hot smoke. It's not going to be a cold smoke. I'm not preserving the meat. This is actually going to be our dinner tonight. Got our fire stoked back up a little bit. As you can see, that smoke's just rolling right over that roast. Well guys, this is going to take several hours, so I'll bring you back periodically. I know some folks are going to ask, why am I leaving so much space in between here and the tarp or the poncho? My reason being is this poncho is nylon, which means it's going to melt relatively easily. If the fire pops, crackles, whatever spits out an ember, it's going to melt right through this. And I want to reuse my poncho. So by keeping it up away from the fire and just relying on the smoke to rise. I'm decreasing the risk of ruining my poncho. It also means that because my poncho is so far away from the fire, if I choose to, I can really stoke that fire up and cook this meat faster if I needed to. I've left the head portion of this poncho open for a reason. It allows a draft to form and help draw the smoke and the heat across the meat that we have hanging in there. Notice the bark is kind of wafting around in the breeze. Well, that breeze, and as you can see now smoke coming out the top, that breeze is caused by the updraft from the heat of that fire. Well, we still have the light to see, guys. Let's try this out. We're going to be eating good tonight, guys. Oh man, we're going to be eating real good. Holy moly. Doesn't get much better than that. Smoked for 4 or 5 hours. Awesome. Alright guys, we're about mid-process on smoking / cooking this roast. It's going to start getting dark soon, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I will keep track of this and I'll paste in some videos, some photos as it kind of goes along. But I wanted to go ahead and give you guys my thoughts while you could still see. So, on the Quickhatch Trapper, what do I think of it? I like it. Like I said in the beginning of this video, when I hold it in my hand, it's a hefty blade. It's not overly heavy, but you definitely know it's there. There's a lot of heft to it, a lot of weight, but that being said, it's very well balanced. The handle is extremely comfortable. It fills out the hand, but it's not too large. For those of you that have smaller hands, you might have an issue, but Brenton is a custom knife maker. He makes these to order. Usually, every once in a while, he'll have an extra one for sale. So you can just tell him, hey, I have smaller hands, thin it up for me just a little bit more, and he'll be happy to work with you on that, I'm sure. It being 3/16 steel, it is very stout, very strong. Again, going back to the handle, when you're doing some heavy batoning like I did today with this knife, there's very little impact that travels through the handle, so it's very comfortable. The fact that it fills out your hand so nicely, you don't have to, scream down with your grip to hang onto this blade when you're doing hard work with it. It fills it out, so it makes working with it very easy. Overall, this knife is just a pleasure to use. I really like it. I've enjoyed the time I've had with it. The grind on it is extremely even. And guys, the sheath that comes with it, it is pretty neat. I really like this removable dangler system that he has with it. As you saw when I started this fire behind me, the spine of this knife is aggressively sharp, which I really like, but the width of the blade makes it such that there's a footprint on your thumb to the point that you can really bear down with your thumb, and the aggressiveness of that spine doesn't dig into your hand or your thumb at all. I know there's a lot of guys out there, and usually I am too, that don't really care for a scanty edge on a blade that's much thicker than 1/8. But I have to say, guys, Brenton's come up with a really good sweet spot on the angle of his bevel here, that this performs as far as finer tasks like a much thinner knife. So guys, to wrap this up, I like this knife. I approve. It receives at least my end of the Gauntlet's thumbs up of approval. I like it. Well guys, I invite you to follow this knife along in the Gauntlet. You can do that by logging on to www.thegauntlet.tv. The next Gauntlet member to review this knife is going to be Simon's Discoveries. I'll put a link to his channel down in the description of this video. He's a relatively new Gauntlet member, guys, so I encourage you to go check him out. Well guys, that wraps up this Gauntlet review of the Quickhatch Trapper. Like I said, this is going on to Simon's Discoveries next, so be sure to check him out. Guys, thank you very much for being here today. I've had a lot of fun showing this knife to you. If you've enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you want to keep track of what my side of the Gauntlet's doing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. And please do hit up the comments section. Let me know what you think of this knife. Let's just start a discussion. Ask me questions. I'll do my best to answer them. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being here, and I will see you next time.